everyone. Thanks for attending. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So today we are talking about late summer surplus, in this case, very late summer surplus. We are talking about zucchini, the cold, dry facts today. Come on. There we go. So the presenters today are Kirsten Hansen, that's me, and Earl Week, who will be talking about zucchini flour later. Elena will be our chat monitor and Q&A lead. So if you put anything in the chat, she'll be taking care of it, and we'll be monitoring for Q&A later. Our host is Travis. Thank you, Travis. And a little housekeeping. Travis already talked about this. Keep your microphones muted, please, and I suggest keeping your camera off unless you need it to be on. That just decreases the bandwidth for this meeting. And put your questions in the chat or ask during the Q&A period. So who are we? We are the University of California Master Food Preserver Program. We are a community outreach, online-based, grant-funded volunteer program through the University of California Cooperative Extension, and we provide up-to-date research-based information on food safety and preservation. Our mission is to keep Californians safe and well as they use culturally appropriate, research-based practices to safely preserve food in the home, reducing food waste, increasing food security, and providing engaging ways for Californians to explore healthy food. And I just have a quick disclaimer. Please note that we may make statements about products that are used or highlighted in this presentation. They're not meant to promote, endorse, or oppose an outside entity's product or service, and we are not receiving compensation. We're all volunteers. So just in slightly less legalese, we may name products in these presentations. It doesn't necessarily mean that we endorse or support those products. So our goals today: we're going to review some food safety preparation procedures. I'm going to talk about processing zucchini via freezing, and Earl is going to talk about utilizing zucchini flour, which was new to me and really exciting. And we're going to have some survey questions at the end, so please answer those surveys. This is really important. We're a new program as of this year, and we really need feedback to see what we want to do in the future. And here's, again, post-event survey. Please hang in there and answer that survey once the Zoom ends. Okay, so now I am going to talk about freezing grated zucchini and zucchini butter. So in order to do sort of this basic food preservation, you need lots of zucchini. Here you see my beautiful pile of zucchini. And if you're just interested in freezing grated zucchini, that is all you need. You will need butter or oil, salt and pepper, and dried or fresh herbs optionally if you choose to go the zucchini butter step, which I will talk about a little bit later. The tools that you'll need for this are a box grater or food processor with a grater attachment. You can certainly do these recipes both with a box grater, as you can see on the screen. It goes a lot faster if you have a food processor with a grater attachment. You'll need a vegetable steamer of some kind. I'll talk about some options for that later. And if you want to do the zucchini butter, you'll need a pan for it. You'll need some storage containers, and I'll talk about those in greater detail later. And having a measuring cup and spoons is very helpful. So in terms of freezing grated zucchini, of course here I love freezing grated zucchini because it's I love using it in baked goods all winter long. So I use it in cookies, I use it in cakes, I use it in muffins. And sometimes I'll actually even use the grated zucchini inside of like a savory dish, but I'm not as interested in serving it, say, as a side dish. If you were wanting to do that, you could do zucchini coins. But in this case, you want to grate your zucchini. You want to start with washed, good quality zucchini. Make sure there's no blemishes on it, no soft spots or moldy spots. And here you notice I am lucky enough to have a food processor with a grater attachment. So I am simply grating my zucchini using my food processor. But again, you can use a box grater as well. And I'll note that For all of these preparations that we're talking about today, you want to start with a clean kitchen, clean sanitized surfaces. If you can't remember if you last used your box grater for cheese, maybe give it an extra wash. You want to start with a clean area before you do any kind of food preservation. Your second step, once you have your giant pile of grated zucchini, is to blanch. So blanching vegetables before freezing is a really important step. What blanching does, and I'll explain what it is first. So basically, blanching is simply submerging your vegetables into either steam or boiling water. And what that does is it halts enzyme activity, which can cause loss of flavor, color, and texture. It cleans the surface of your vegetables. They should already be clean, but a little bit of extra cleaning doesn't hurt. It brightens their color and it slows the loss of vitamins. And it also wilts your vegetables a little bit and makes them easier to pack in tightly. And you can either blanch in boiling water, where you would simply have a pot of boiling water and submerge your vegetables for a brief set amount of time, usually no more than 1 to 3 minutes, often even less, or steam blanch. And again, this is creating a steam environment for your vegetables where you're putting them in the steam environment and doing that instead. And basically, blanching your vegetables before freezing ensures that they come out of your freezer as delicious and nutritious as they went in. So for my zucchini, I am going to blanch it in a steamer because I have all these little bits of zucchini and submerging them in boiling water would not be very successful. So you want to steam blanch your grated zucchini in at least 3 inches above rapidly boiling water. Here you'll notice I'm simply using one layer of a bamboo steamer with a circle of parchment paper on the bottom to keep the zucchini from sticking. You could also use a metal vegetable steamer. Any sort of steamer that you have will work. You want to steam your zucchini for 1 to 3 minutes until the little shreds are translucent. And you want to steam it in multiple batches of thin layers. You don't want the layers too thick because you want the steam to penetrate all of your zucchini quite quickly. You don't want to be having some unsteamed, unblanched, and some too blanched. You want it all even. And you'll need to do this in multiple batches. If you're doing a lot of zucchini, I would suggest looking into trying to find a large steamer or even getting 2 pots going. After you have blanched your zucchini, you want to pack it. So you can use freezer bags or hard-sided containers that are designed for freezing. Here I am using freezer bags. So these are bags that are designed for freezing. They're nice firm plastic. They zip well. I can get all of the air out of them and know that it's going to stay out. You don't want to repurpose like little sandwich bags or like bread bags from the supermarket. You really want to have bags that are designed for freezing. You want to label it. So here I'm saying that this is grated zucchini. I'm saying that there is 3 cups, and I'm saying the date on which I froze it. And you want to leave 1/2 inch of headspace for water expansion when freezing. And these are quart or 4-cup bags. And so 3 cups leaves me plenty of space for expansion. And I'm using 3 cups just because that's the quantity in which I usually use zucchini. And you'll notice here that I have a 4-cup measuring cup that I'm standing my bag up inside. I find this is a great way to pack my bags because I can pack my zucchini inside the bag, inside the measuring cup, and I know when I've hit 3 cups. And then your last step is to cool and freeze. So you want to make sure that your zucchini is cool before freezing it. So you're going to cool the zucchini container, in this case my plastic bag, in an ice water bath before freezing. I think it looks very cute bobbing around in there. And then you are going to freeze. And in this case, I like the bag because it freezes nice and flat. And now I'm going to talk about freezing zucchini butter. So what is zucchini butter? It is my favorite way to consume zucchini. It is slow-cooked grated zucchini with a little bit of fat, so olive oil or butter or both, and optionally some hard or soft herbs like rosemary or marjoram or thyme. You cook the grated zucchini until most of the water evaporates. It has shrunk considerably in volume. You'll see that in one of my photos. And it's silky and spreadable. It's delicious. You can spread it on bread or crackers, toss it with pasta for an easy dinner, or spread it on the base of a galette pizza or savory tart. So, why do I want to freeze it? Because I want it all year, even when zucchini isn't growing. But more seriously, there are no safe tested recommendations for pressure canning plain zucchini and other summer squash. Those recommendations simply aren't there. Squash is a low acid vegetable, although as we know, it's botanically a fruit, and so cannot be boiling water canned without additional acid like pickling. So if you attended our zucchini demo earlier in the week, we talked about some methods of doing canned zucchini with additional acid in the form of pineapple. But freezing is safe and easy. So again, for your zucchini butter, you're starting with the same first step as for plain frozen zucchini. You're grating it, and then you're going to cook your zucchini butter. I have a recipe at the end of the slides and the handouts that will be going out, but essentially you're simply melting a little bit of oil or butter in your pan and then adding all of your grated zucchini. Behold, it is a giant mound of zucchini in my pan. And then you cook it for quite some time. It takes upwards of 30 or 40 minutes. This is a great thing to do when you're puttering around in your kitchen because you want to cook down until almost all the water has evaporated. So once you have your zucchini butter, you're going to pack it. So this time I've chosen to pack it in hard-sided plastic containers. You could also potentially use canning jars like mason jars or ball jars, though I would suggest wide mouth because that makes it easier to get out. So in this case, I have a nice firm-sided container. I have a lid that goes onto it securely. It's not going to let smells in or out. It's not going to let moisture evaporate. You wouldn't want to, say, use like soft deli containers for freezing because they're just not going to be sturdy enough to keep your precious frozen produce in good condition in the freezer. You also, if you're going to use glass containers, want to make sure they are designed for canning and freezing because a lot of just jars from the supermarket aren't going to be tempered and so they could shatter in the freezer. Here again, I've labeled my container with what it is and the date I packed it. And even though most of the water has evaporated from the zucchini, I've left some headspace for expansion. And then I cool the zucchini butter again in an ice water bath. And then I freeze. And here is all of my grated zucchini and my zucchini butter. And I will say that I have used some of the grated, actually all the grated zucchini now for various cakes, and it was delicious. And I will now take any questions. Elena, do we have questions?
Not in the chat.
Okay, great. Does anyone have questions that they would like to put in? And as I said, there's many recipes for zucchini butter across the internet, but we also have one particular recipe that I like that will be in the handout.
It looks like we have a question from Shalinda in the chat.
Okay.
How long will zucchini butter last?
That is a great question. So I would say probably for best, so when you are doing items in the freezer, it's less a question of safety and more a question of quality. Honestly, it's never lasted that long in my freezer, but I would say probably 3 to 6 months for best quality, certainly probably no more than a year. And if you wanted to be extra sure, I would put a layer of parchment paper or wax paper across the top of your zucchini butter before putting the lid onto the container, just to make sure that you're not getting oxidation or anything like that. Okay, please go ahead and put additional questions in the chat if you have them, and I'm happy to address them at the end. But otherwise, I am going to turn it over to Earl to talk about zucchini flour. Earl, take it away and just tell me when you want me to advance the slide.
Earl, I think you're muted.
And Earl, you are muted.
Okay, that should be better. My name is Earl Week, and I live about 50 miles east of San Francisco. I still have some zucchini growing. In fact, I noticed this morning I have a small plant. But that's more or less the starting point for our presentation, is that usually during the summer we have just too much zucchini. Now, this zucchini actually, this picture shows a round zucchini. So it's not only the long type, and also does you do also get a yellow variety as well as the green. So for the drying process, what you need to do is you start by washing and cleaning the zucchini and also removing any defects. Next slide. Okay, so you're starting to dry the zucchini. You need to cut this into 1/4 inch slices, and that is for any size diameter. And then make sure that you space it properly on your dryer, on the dehydrator. And I have pictures here that actually show the start and also the finish of the drying process. Now, we have tried about 130 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 hours. But what you want to do is make sure that it will break and not bend. So make sure that the zucchini will sort of fall apart. You need that in order to later on turn it into flour. Next slide. Fresh zucchini has 93 to 94% water, and our dehydrated zucchini will be about 10%. So you can see right there, you're losing a lot of material. You may need to increase the temperature and also the length of time that you dry in order to get the product completely dry. Dehydrated zucchini slices can also be used for things like soup and other kinds of food. The dehydrated zucchini can be stored in closed jars, and you need to make sure that when you do this, that you don't get drops of water or anything else into the system. I've actually found doing this over a period of time that sometimes your drying is not complete, and of course the result of that is mold. Next slide. Okay, zucchini flour, and sometimes it's called Amish flour. And essentially all you're doing is the very, very dry zucchini you have, you can grind that. And you can use a coffee grinder or a food processor. Now, this is different than actually what you're doing with a flour mill, because with a flour mill, you're grinding and sifting to set the particle size of the flour. With this, all you're really doing is just continuing to grind until you have a fine enough powder to consider it a flour. And this will also become very dusty. And so you want to make sure that when you do grind, you probably want to leave it in the grinder just a little bit longer so that the dust cloud inside has a chance to settle. Next slide. How to use the flour. Well, unlike wheat flour, this is actually zucchini. It's actually low in starch. You may get an increase in starch if it has a lot of seeds in it. Of course, the other thing you want to remember is if it has extremely large seeds, it's best to remove those. Starch actually provides structure in baking. Over the years, zucchini flour has been used to replace flour, that's regular flour, in bakery products. And this was very popular during times of famine, or not necessarily famine, but rationing. For example, during World War II, rationing of flour was a problem, and so zucchini flour could be used. For this presentation, we made cookies, and this shows the formulation for the cookies. Now, this is a pretty basic kind of formulation. You'll find this if you have oatmeal, an oatmeal box in your cabinet. Right under the lid will be this formulation. Now, it's going to be different than this because I think most of those are two egg formulations, and this is just one. And as you can see, as you look down through the formulation, we have 1/2 cup of flour and 1/4 cup of zucchini flour. So we went ahead and mixed this up, baked it for about 10 minutes, and then I think the next slide shows our results. There it is. That is the zucchini cookie. And as you can see that we have broken the cookie in half, and you can see the inside. It actually has a very good texture. Now, I worked many years working in cookies. I actually worked for a bakery. And I really didn't pick up any off flavors in this. It tasted really like oatmeal chocolate chip cookie should taste. Now, the other thing about this, when I usually make this, I usually go heavy on the chocolate chips. This cookie could also be made replacing chocolate chips with raisins. So next slide. I guess we have some information later on that points out where we got our resources. The internet, the web has many sites that talk about the use of zucchini flour, and that's a good place to look for formulation because a lot of people have done other baking than just cookies. And then I also want to mention that we have books, of course, that we use, which the So Easy to Preserve book pages 333 to 335, and that has a nice description of dehydration. And I believe that's it. Are there any questions?
Any questions from anyone? Don't hesitate to speak up or put anything in the chat.
Hello. How long would that last as a powder?
I think you could keep it as long as you have it closed. You can probably keep it for maybe 6 months.
Thank you. Oh, one more
And
question.
sorry, Matt, this is Kirsten, and Earl, this is
Sorry.
also Kirsten. I was just going to say that in many cases, I know that for whole grain flours and things like that, you can certainly freeze them for longevity.
Yes.
I imagine that part of the point of dehydration is so that we don't have to cram our freezers with things, but I imagine that the zucchini flour might last longer if it was frozen as well. So that's an option.
That's true. Usually, though, with flour, and especially whole wheat flour, it contains fat because the germ is involved in making that flour. And that then introduces the possibility of rancidity from fat, which you're not going to have it with this because
Okay.
fat level is very, very low.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Have you tried to do other applications like, I don't know, frying with it? You know, when you do a dredging with say fried chicken or something like that. Have you tried
No,
anything like that?
no, I haven't. You might just check the internet and look for zucchini flour applications, and a lot of it has to do with maybe some sites that relate to Amish cooking or also some Pioneer cooking. And there may be some other things there. I think actually this is not going to be a very good flour that will work to make bread because it really doesn't really have the kind of protein that bread needs, which is the gluten proteins.
Right, and that was going to be my next question. Have you tried to use a 100% zucchini flour? But as you had mentioned, the starch content's different. I imagine the gluten content's different.
And the
So,
protein. The proteins.
yes, protein content. Yes, thank you.
Any other questions?
If not, then Kirsten, you can bring us home.
Absolutely. There we go. Okay. I don't know if y'all can see me. I can't see me, but I do have my video on. So we are going to wrap it up. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending today. We have answered some of your questions, we hope. In terms of future events, please do sign up for our email list to receive notices about upcoming events. And if someone could put a link to our email list in the chat, that would be fabulous, either Travis or Elena. We will soon have a newsletter, so keep posted on that. And please find us on Facebook. You can search for this link here. Someone could put it in the chat. That would be great. UCMFP. And like us, we are getting our social media really up and running with the online program, and we would love to continue sharing tips and tricks with you. Here I have a list of all the resources, and again, you will all be receiving these after this event. We rely heavily on the National Center for Home Food Preservation. They have a ton of great resources related to all things home food preservation, so I encourage you to use that as your starting point. Here I have my zucchini butter recipe from the kitchen. We also the University of Georgia Cooperative Extension has a wealth of information, and we have the Earl's link for the how to make zucchini flour. Please follow our social media and statewide website for upcoming events. They are indeed upcoming. They just aren't here quite yet. As I mentioned, we're a new program and we are hitting our stride within the next couple of months, so stay tuned. And thank you very much, everyone, for attending tonight. I hope that this was interesting and that you learned something. I certainly am super interested to explore zucchini flour, and I am sad that all my zucchini is gone and there will be no more until next year. But thanks, everyone, for attending. And thank you, everyone who is putting links in the chat. Everyone go ahead and grab those. And Travis, I will hand it back to you to end the meeting.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to the attendees. Thank you to the hosts, the presenters. Last thing I'll say is when we close this Zoom out, really when I close the Zoom and end it, in your browser should pop up a survey. The survey has questions that complement those that you responded to in the registration. This data will only be reported. This is to allow us to have long-term funding and continue offering courses. I really would appreciate it if you can fill that out. If for some reason there is no pop-up in your browser, don't hesitate to contact me. Put my email in the chat very quick. And otherwise, I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us on a Friday and have a great weekend.